Hello, and welcome to tonight's commentary. 38 years ago, on January 22nd, 1973, the United States Supreme Court committed what had to have been the most tragic act in the history of the United States. It was the day that they legalized unfettered abortion, all the way up to the day that the baby could be born. This has resulted in the deaths of 55 million unborn children. It's actually murder. Now I can go spend hours talking about this, but there's going to be a few things that I think are worthy of mentioning. First off, there was something that I heard on Wretched Radio on a podcast. It was dated January 11th, just a few days ago. And the host, Todd Friel, mentioned something about British women being interviewed that had done abortions. And I could not believe it when I heard it. I mean, yes, I understand it happened, but just the total depravity behind it, it was just not just shocking, it's mind-numbing. When people say, like Jocelyn Elders, who was Clinton's Surgeon General, would say things like, "We want every child to be a planned and wanted child." Well, here's what happened. These women admitted to getting in vitro fertilization. This isn't natural conception. This is, having the egg put in your uterus to implant to have a child 9 months later. And you know what some of them did? Some of them actually aborted those children. And I was just like, my goodness, just how wicked do we have to be? And I thought about it and I was like, this isn't taking place just in England. This is taking place in a lot of other countries, and I would be foolish to think that it's not happening in the US. In fact, I think a lot of us would be foolish to assume that it only happened in England. I'm sure it's happening in countries where it's legal to get an abortion. Now, I got to thinking about something else too, okay? Because, I can go on and on about this so-called right to choose when, the baby doesn't even have a right to voice its opinion whether to live or not. See, in the course of those 38 years, there has to have been at least 55 million murders, which I had mentioned earlier, excuse me. Now, take the first 22 years. It could have been maybe about somewhere between, maybe 25, 35 million. Had abortion not been legal, these people could have been productive members of society. They could have cured diseases, they could have been missionaries, whatever the case may be. But they would have been productive members of society, more often than not. But they're not. They're not here with us. And on top of that, we've got a really serious dilemma coming up. There are all those baby boomers that are retiring. And as it is, they're going to be drawing on Social Security. And see, as it is, Social Security is basically, it's called the third rail of politics in the U.S. It's one of those things where if you even make any mention of touching it, you get a serious political backlash for it. So, with the fact that Social Security is one of those things where supposedly you paid into it, but the money isn't really there, so you got to rely on the succeeding generation to help pay for it. See, those productive members of society that we don't have because these baby boomer mothers and those that followed them killed them, you know, you don't have us have those people paying in the help pay the taxes toward it. And so, what do you have to fall back on? Those of us that are still living, you know, but wouldn't it have been helpful if we hadn't had that terrible decision? Yeah, you could have had all those people that would have been hardworking, productive citizens paying into it, because even though it's being raided, you know, hey, there would have been someone to fall back on, but we don't. If you think about it, everything that I've mentioned here, you know, we are really reaping the bitter and fruit and the consequences from that day. And God help us, because every one of us, we are in a serious world of hurt. Thank you for watching.